Hello and welcome to Storypath Showcase. I am Travis Legge, your story guide, and this session we are performing session 0 for our Dystopia Rising Evolution campaign, which I am intensely looking forward to. I love this. I am thrilled to have the chance to run it, and I'm honored and blessed by the company I have in this adventure. So I'm going to go ahead and stop flapping my gums and let them start to introduce themselves. We'll kick things off with Katie. And if you could, please tell us who you are, what you do, your pronouns, and where people can find you on the internet. If you have any, tidbit you want to share, maybe about your connection with Dystopia Rising, or your favorite hobby, whatever other pertinent details you wish to share, you're welcome to do so. And then when you're done, you can pass the talking privilege to the next person, and then I don't have the embarrassment of messing up anyone's name.
Perfect. Hello, everybody. My name is Katie Griffin. My pronouns are she, her. I have been involved with Dystopia Rising Evolution as a writer for the most part. I helped create Hell Now's Guide to Wasteland Beasties as a developer, as well as Trouble on the Steel Pier. There are some other things in the works as well. And I also did the small little tasty bits that Onyx Path has been releasing. And I did a bunch of different characters with that. Before that, honestly, I got into Dystopia Rising via the LARP. Fun facts. Well, I'm very excited to be here with all these amazing people. And my favorite hobby, weirdly enough, is running with my dog. So yeah, that's me.
Wonderful. And who would you like to go next?
I'm going to pass it off to Jesse, who is literally, for me, right below me, but I'm sure that's not the case elsewhere.
It's all going to be magically assigned into boxes of convenience at a future date. To the magic of editing.
I'm Jessie Morrow. My pronouns are she, her. You can find me on the internet, but I'm not sure why you'd be going to look for me. I'm not a writer. I was one of the players of Katie's Dystopia Evolution tabletop game that was also being streamed, Thieves of Old York. And we also played another, the one-shot game as well. I was also introduced through Dystopia Rising from the LARP. I'm a year one player. I played a character called Daisy Scottsdale for years. Things that I do for fun. I play a lot of games, big on board games, card games. You know what, I play it. And do not like running with my dog, though he makes me.
Important to know. And who would you like to go next?
Chris Kitts, you're up.
It's me. Hi, my name is Chris Kitts. My pronouns are he, him. I do not have that much interaction with DR. I played back in 2010. I played American named Ursa Foreman. No relation to Bear Grylls. And other than that, I've done a little bit of writing for a couple of the online events that have been run in the past 2 or so years, as we are all in a pepperoni. Me, I am a DJ. If you have any interest in spooky goth tunes or gay shit, DJ Stygian on Facebook and Twitter. I also occasionally write for some other games, including Changeling 2.0, Doomsday, and another little thing in my back pocket that will maybe happen when we are out of the pepperoni. I think that's me. And I'll go to Heather.
Thank you much. Hi there, I'm Heather Halstead. I am mostly involved with DR on the LARP side of things. I've been playing in DR Texas for quite a few years. I'm a storyteller over there. Done quite a bit of writing during this pepperoni, as Chris put it, for virtual games, both for Texas and for the couple national events that we had. So that's been a lot of fun. about me, I'm also a filmmaker. So I make films. I have done the film school thing. It was a lot of fun. And it's great. And it's amazing how many skills from LARP and filmmaking overlap. Hobbies aside from that, I do both awesome gory wound special effects makeup, and I crochet blankets. So take that as you will.
The new gender binary.
It's perfect. Exactly.
Oh, and I'm sorry. Thank you for saying that. My pronouns are she, her.
Thank you. And I guess that just leaves us with Michael, right? Michael's our final remaining panelist. So please tell us who you are, what you do, all that fun stuff.
Hi, I'm Michael Pucci. My pronouns are he, they. I will go with either masculine or gender neutral. For myself, my relation with Dystopia Rising is I'm the original creator of Dystopia Rising. Back in its original DR, LARP, and tabletop format. I didn't actually have a lot to do with DRE other than answering questions and being there as a resource. I've sort of been out of the tabletop and LARP thing, except for, when something is a project that I'm really passionate about and it's new and just want to sort of do it as creatively. I can be found on Facebook at /MrPucci.com or whatever the Facebook extension is. I don't have a lot of projects that I can really talk about because I'm just sort of working on them at the pace that I feel like. Personal stuff. I work in giant megacorp marketing things now, and I enjoy molds, spores, and funguses. Also, hiking with my dog and distilling insanely hot whiskeys.
Sounds like some very lovely pastimes that
I have to hit you up.
We've all got. Yeah, that's for sure.
It's
yeah,
good.
You should brew a special whiskey just for Dystopia Rising if you haven't already done 5 or 10 of those.
I did one year make soap for everyone who attended a large national event from scratch. I like learning odd things. So I made soap for everyone who attended the national event under the agreement that they would use it.
I was about to say, there's a dual purpose there, huh?
Oh, yeah.
A very subtle hint.
Take a bath.
Here are some artisanal soaps that I have made for all of you. I will give it to you as long as you promise to use it.
Sounds like a perfect pitch. And speaking of pitches, so this is awkward as this is going to be for me to explain to you all what Dystopia Rising Evolution is. This is a post-apocalyptic game that is set many years after sort of the fall of society as we know it. In the aftermath of the cataclysmic events, new strains of humanity have arisen. Pockets of civilization have popped up across the world, sort of spread out amid areas that are commonly referred to as the wasteland. The wasteland is home to all manner of bizarre creatures, zombies, various mutated animals, spores, molds, and funguses, quite literally, in fact. And it's a game that places a lot of emphasis on sort of the hope of building a new and better world on the fungus-ridden ashes of the world that came before. Does that sound like a fair bird's eye view of the world of Dystopia Rising?
Bangarang, Rufio.
Thanks so much. I am very. This is touched on a couple of genres that are very close to my heart, so I'm very excited to get to delve into this world. To that end, the reason for our gathering is for everyone to have fun, and paramount in people having fun is people being comfortable. So a couple things that I want to discuss right off the bat are the safety tools that we use when we play, I typically rely on the X card since we're all on video. You're fine to simply say X if you want to invoke the X card. You can make an X with your arms if you want to. You can type X in the Zoom chat. Though full disclosure, that is where I'm least likely to notice it popping up. Having said that, though, in the event that the X card is invoked, we'll stop play. If there's any confusion whatsoever as to what might have triggered it, I'll ask a clarifying question, but you don't need to explain to me why that's a problem. You know what I mean? The only reason I would ask is if I didn't know what the actual trigger was or what we needed to excise. At that point, we would excise whatever content was objectionable, and we would resume play once that was done. Having said that, I also want to make sure that if there are any areas that are that we know going into the story are areas of no-go, things we don't want to include in the game, I'd like to get those covered right away so we have a nice list of things I know not to include in the story. I will go first. I don't include SA in my stories, period, under any circumstances. It just doesn't need to be part of the narrative, so I don't include it in the narrative. If anyone, I'll go through person by person, I suppose, and just ask kind of if you have any of those, but also if there are any setting elements or themes that you are particularly excited to include. The yes-go areas, I really want to see gore flying out of people. I can make sure that we do that. So let's go ahead and kick things off this time with Jesse, if you don't mind going first. If you could tell us if you have any no-goes that we've not already covered or anything that you'd particularly like to see in the game.
I love gore. I'm along the lines with Heather, and I do special effects makeup as well. We're a horror family, so more gore, more better. I tend to write more gore when I end up writing things as well. I don't do baby stuff, so if we could leave out dead baby stuff, I'd appreciate that. But other than that, and sexual assault, I am free to go.
I am also just making a list in the Zoom chat that I will share with everyone at the end to make sure I haven't missed anything. But those all seem completely reasonable to me, and I'm glad to see that we're all gore hounds. Chris, do you have any that you would like to add on either side of those scales?
I'm pretty good with gore. I am an actual cannibal. The only thing I would appreciate is if we could avoid really graphic depictions of childbirth. That's just a huge gross factor for me. But other than that, full throttle baby.
All right, cool. Excellent. And do you have anything that you would like to add, Heather? Any no-go areas or things that you're particularly excited to see?
I think we pretty much already covered all of the no-goes I would have said. Excited to see. I am a big horror fan in every aspect of the word in terms of gore, but also I am a giant angst monster. And so anything that's emotional angst makes me very happy in a weird way. Strange sentence to say, but you get me. I
do. Excellent. Cool. Katie, is there anything that we have not yet covered that you would like to add to either side of the scales?
I think, honestly, they covered everything that I would have been no-go on. I am also going to be a proponent for blood and gore. And I also really, really enjoy the sense of creeping dread and spooky, and something's there, but it's not quite revealed yet. So if we could, that is my jam.
This just became It Follows the tabletop.
Yep. So we've got so on the plus side we've got gore, we've got the suspenseful horror, and I feel like I'm already missing one, the angst. Just want to make sure I'm not missing any of the yes goes because I'm only typing the no goes at the moment. And then Michael, any other elements that you'd like to either avoid or include that we haven't yet covered?
If possible, I would like to be able to try and steer away from things that are currently happening in the modern day, like parallels to it.
Right.
I do a lot of my tabletop for a degree of escapism. Everything else that I normally would be like, hey, let's stay away from those, has already been mentioned. For the pro side, I am all about not just gore, but suspense, horror, the unknown. And I love it when a storyteller doesn't give me all the information.
Beautiful. I think I can swing that, I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to go ahead and just share the list of the no-goes to the Zoom chat, as well as the yes-goes. You'll have to forgive me. You will quickly learn that I lack the ability to type and talk at the same time. Let's see.
People of Cascade, it is time for you to wake up and realize the truth of the city you live in. Neither the FSA nor Fulgur Tech care about you. The brain implant Cascade gives you for free is just a leash on your mind. Where you see a new beginning of the horrors of the Aberrant War, Fulgur Tech sees a chance to control you when you're at your weakest. And this video game, Terror Surge, is only part of their plan. Last year alone, in 2083, nearly 90% of the citizens of Cascade have played it. It's an addiction, not an escape. Don't you see it's nothing more than a new opiate for the masses? We need to...
And see if that phrasing for the yes goes works for everybody. I just put gore, suspense, angst, creeping dread, and mystery. Does that sound about right? Is there anything on either of those lists that you feel that I've missed? Awesome. Cool. Well, then we can get down into the nitty-gritty of character creation. So the Storypath system is built around really starting with the foundation of who your character is, where they've come from, what they've learned from that, and then building up from there. So the first thing the book asks us to look at is what the character concept is, kind of the overall type of character you would like to play. The more you can sort of nail that down, the easier it is to build on top of it, but you're by no means immediately bound to something that you determine at this stage in the game. Do any of you have a clear concept of who you had in mind for your character, or is this something we're going to kind of find on the way? I see Chris nodding. I see Heather nodding. So we put, and I see Jesse nodding a bit too. So we put Jesse in the hot seat first last time. So Heather, what was the concept that you had?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I want to do like a very like aggressively like overbearing, protective like mother figure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe, and you may even just want to make a note on the character, or even if you look at the side of your character sheet, you'll see a place that says character notes that you can click on as well, where you can write down some of these additional notes, or if you want to copy like the mechanics from your abilities and paste in there so you have it for quick reference, you can note that down in there as well. So yeah, something along the lines of mother figure might be a good, or like, den mother or something along those lines might be kind of a cool phrase to capture that. Katie, did you have a strict concept specifically in mind?
Yes. Medic that's done with your shit.
Beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. So
excellent. Yeah, that sounds pretty straightforward, and I think you'll find it relatively easy to build. Michael, do you have a concept in mind?
Yeah, I was thinking about going with an Ascensorite who is focused around Mortis Amaranthine or Death Cult. Either taking it from the approach of Church of Darwin or maybe like Tribes of the Season, like a subsect.
Okay, so to boil that down into like a basic level, they're sort of a
sensorite who thinks they hear the word of God.
Yeah, like a religious extremist, I guess one might say, or fanatic at least.
Delusional.
I mean, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. And then, excuse me, Chris, what concept did you have in mind?
Tired single mushroom dad looking for a quiet Sunday in.
I love it, and that's perfect. And Jesse, concept-wise, what did you have in mind?
I'm looking to play someone who runs groups of people out to look for resources for technology and to test new technology that's created by their society.
Okay, so almost like a scavenger plus.
I'm no scavenger. I lead the scavengers.
Beautiful. Okay, excellent. Cool. I love it. So once we've got those concepts together, the next thing we would like to focus on is choosing our aspirations. Aspirations represent the goals that you have for your character, the things that you would like to see occur. And these do not necessarily need to be in the character's mind goals. Some of these can be like a narrative as well, right? So it might, be that you as the player would like very much to, cleave a zombie in twain before the session is out. That would qualify as an aspiration, even if it's something that your character would very much like to avoid. You can still use those out of character desires for your aspirations. And we choose 2 short terms and a long term during character creation. So the general rule of thumb would be a short-term aspiration is something that you can accomplish within the span of a session. Generally speaking, you might not necessarily actually accomplish it within the span of that session, but something that you could reasonably expect to be able to do within a session of play. Whereas a long-term aspiration is intended to be designed to be more arc focused, or something that you would accomplish over several stories, just a longer term goal. And so as you're doing those, or as you're selecting those, I guess I should say, I think on the sheet I'm seeing an issue. There is no editable text on that sheet right now. So if you want to copy the text from below the skill tricks and paste them in place and then edit those there, you can do that. So my apologies for that. We are rolling out some brand new hot character sheets for Astral Tabletop. And so these fine folks have they have agreed, and by agreed, I mean been surprised into service as playtesters for those sheets. So I greatly appreciate your work there.
That's really cool. That's so cool.
The fact that you can literally just copy and paste text boxes is fantastic.
Yeah, it comes in real handy. It's very good for making those last minute tweaks and things like that. Though I'm also going to go ahead and explain, because when I first saw your chat come across, I misunderstood your question for a second. Just so you're aware, you don't necessarily need to complete an aspiration in order to change that aspiration next session, right? So if you come up with something in the first session, you're like, oh, I'd really like to do X, Y, or Z. And then it becomes clear to you that either in the context of the story that's being told, that's not going to be fun anymore, or just like, ooh, I would much rather have this be my aspiration. I have no objection to you switching those out in between sessions. And also if you fulfill any aspirations, you need to replace them either at the end of the session in which you fulfill them or the beginning of the following session. And aspirations do dictate To a point, the acquisition of experience points. As we all know, the main reason people gather for play. Do any of you have any short-term or long-term aspirations that leap out at you as like, oh, I really want to make sure I have this in play?
For a short term, I was thinking of aiming for, I want to achieve the group setting of, they're creepy, but there are creepy.
Okay, so is that something you're trying to, a feeling you're trying to get from the rest of your group, or that you're trying to project out for your group to other people?
To come inward, like sort of building the role play in such a way that the rest of the group would be like, yeah, but he's one of ours. I don't want to be, I don't want to end up as like the lone wolf out there just from going too far on the creepy side. So.
Okay, that's fair. Sounds good. And that's something that you're assigning to short term?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Do you have any other short terms that have popped up yet, or are you still working on your second?
Not yet.
All right, Katie, any short terms?
Yes, actually. I have let someone bleed for longer than needed to prove a point. And I also have hit and I also have hit someone for making a perceived dumb move.
Beautiful.
So,
I think both of those are attainable within the span of a session. Jesse, any short terms come to mind yet?
I wrote down find a component of value, because that one of her main purposes is looking for things to use to build technology, and field test a new technology. So hopefully figure out making a weapon or something that will be helpful on the field.
Beautiful. Chris, any short terms spring up yet?
Short term, I have share a beverage with someone as tired as he is, and gentle dad proselytize.
Okay, beautiful. So not so much a lecture as a sharing of wisdom at some point.
Yeah,
right?
it's like a hey sport, have a seat, but like maybe not quite so hey sport.
I am all about the hey sport moment.
I will crack up if you say hey sport at any point.
Noted. That's actually my third bonus aspiration. It's like sport, have a seat.
I love it. Heather, any short terms?
Yeah, I definitely want to get into a yelling match with someone. Can be NPC or PC, either one. That'd be fun because I want to play a tainted and be very aggressively protective of people. Long term, I would like to this kind of fits in with what Michael was talking about. Is I kind of want to imprint on the group of these are mine.
Okay, so to form like a cohesive unit out of your group.
Yeah, but probably in a way that's not the healthiest in the world.
That's fair. We make no judgments in the aspirations. It's just do you achieve them or not? So how about other long terms? Did anyone else come up with their long term yet? And again, keeping in mind, these are not only a mechanical benefit to you in terms of experience and sort of a role-playing guide for yourself, but they're also a guide for me to draw on as the story guide and say, well, I know that they want to tick these boxes. So I want to make sure that I'm getting opportunities for them to explore those role play, which is part of the reason why I want to build them together as a group. Any long terms pop up? Anyone? Katie, did I see you?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of did almost the same exact thing as Michael and Heather, but in a different way, which is I view this character as a diesel jock that's probably far from home. So I'm going to have her goal find happiness away from home, because she always refers back to home being near the overgrowth and it's so much better there and this, that, and the other thing. I want her to realize, oh no, this is my new messed up, weird family.
I love it. Cool. Any other long terms that have cropped up? Did you find one yet, Michael?
I came up with my second short term, I think.
What do you got?
I want to make either a player or a cast a character NPC consider religious conversion.
Okay, excellent. I love it. I love it. That is a notable and noble aspiration. And a long term for you, Chris?
So I wrote Tip the Inception Top. I picture this character as being on the line between like the dad and the mushroom, for lack of a better word, like existing kind of in this nebulous place of like, I could go either way based on like my faith and the events that happen upon my person. So choosing between the dad and the mushroom.
Okay, so finding like that pivotal sort of cause to make you embrace one side or the other. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Jesse, long term?
So what I thought of is to find or create something that helps improve the quality of life at her settlement. She's got a lot of Catholic guilt over being the cause of the fall of man, and wants to build something using that old technology to make things better.
I love it. And again, just to emphasize, the aspirations are very much intended to be a role-playing guide. Feel free to help one another out as you are pursuing those aspirations. If you see an opportunity to engage in a role play scenario that you know is going to trigger somebody else's aspiration as being completed, dive in. That's what they're there for. It's a team sport. Okay, so I think we just had Michael was still working on the other, or you were working on the long still, right, Michael? Or did you?
I think I figured it out.
Okay, go ahead.
Doomsday cult.
Like founding a doomsday cult, like.
Oh no, ending the doomsday cult.
Oh, ending the doomsday cult. Okay, sure.
We're going Jonestown here. We're going to get some Kool-Aid.
Beautiful. I love it. Excellent. So now that we've got the aspirations out of the way, the next step is to choose your paths. And in Dystopia Rising Evolution, there are 3 paths that each character begins with. And those of you at the audience at home who are familiar with other Storypath games will note that the paths in Dystopia Rising Evolution function a little differently than what you might be accustomed to if you're coming here from, say, Trinity or Scion, in terms of what they offer and in terms of exactly what they represent. The 3 paths in Dystopia Rising are Strain, which is sort of the history, upbringing, and mutation that allows you to survive the wastes. It's an inherited, it's the way that your family survived the fall. It's the way that it helps shape your worldview, and it helps shape your character's sort of basic abilities. So you may each choose a strain path. Do you all have a strain in mind already at this point? Excellent. So let's just go ahead and I guess we'll start this time with Chris. What strain were you going to be playing?
I'll be an unborn.
Unborn. Excellent. And do you want to tell the audience at home just a little bit about who the unborn are?
The unborn are, for lack of a better word, kind of gravemind worshippers. They tend to be a little on the physically green side, literally green tinted skin, purpley veins, white eyes. They are bad to look at typically. And they feel a distinct connection to the gravemind, or whatever flavorful word you want to call the gravemind. And, they kind of operate on a, like, we are tied to this. We are born from this. We go back to this, very, very religiously and emotionally tied to it.
Excellent. Cool. And Jesse, what did you have in mind for your strain?
So I want to play a Digitarian. When you talk about like how people the strain is how your ancestors survived the fall. It's the Digitarians were said that they were the ones that tried to craft a cure when the infection first took hold, and So they work on trying to rebuild society and the technology that they once knew.
Excellent. Very good. Katie, what did you have in mind for your strength?
I think I'm going to go with Diesel Jock. Diesel Jocks are kind of road warriors. They're the kind of what you think post-apocalyptic is. They go on the rides in groups together across the wasteland. They hunt fuel sources. They tend to be a little bit more rough around the edges as well, which I think would pair well with my rough around the edges medic concept.
I love it. Cool. Heather, what did you have in mind for your strength?
Yeah, I wanted to go with a tainted. Tainted are, so raiders in the setting are infected with bad brain, which, as it progresses, makes them more and more animalistic, and makes them eventually into, what we know and love to fight with raiders. Tainted have evolved so that the bad brain never progresses. So they have it, they're kind of in later stages, but they're not raiders. They're not really related to raiders. But they, still kind of twitchy and more aggressive than other strange because of this bad brain that they're kind of always living with.
Beautiful. And Michael, you had said for your strain, you were looking at
Sensorite.
Sensorite, yes.
They were the strain that evolved from those that feel that faith is the reason why they survive the apocalypse, and generations of cargo cults and that sort of like heavy devotion, so that they get to the point where a portion of their brain and then eventually their body evolves differently based on their faith. They don't have belief, they are belief.
Beautiful. Cool. And each of you will begin then with 1 dot in your strain path. So you'll just go ahead and mark that on your sheet, note the name of your strain, and we'll come back to the various different system benefits that provides momentarily. Your role path represents your occupation or area of expertise. It's what you do either as sort of your job, or just kind of more like where you settle in with the community as a whole, sort of where you fit. It can be either or, it can be both. It can be in accordance with kind of your social expectation, or it can be, opposed to it. You could be like, I'm really good with this thing, but I hate it. So it's kind of however you want to flavor that is up to you. The role path does not have dots, but you do select which path you would like. Those are on page 64 of the core book. Did you all have a role path in mind, or did you need a few moments to sort of consult those? You're also welcome to, pool thoughts and kick ideas around as a group if you prefer to.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So I know that Katie mentioned a medic, and I think Chris mentioned a publican, right? You want to go with that?
I think politician's probably a better fit.
I guess I'm just curious what everyone is really angling for, because I'm always interested in having a kind of a well-rounded group. Not that, people can play what they want. If we all want to be medics, then whatever, we'll make it fun. But
I was actually thinking gunslinger, because when someone has been chosen by the grave to return to it, I have to do their will.
The closest thing to medic is a sawbones, so I thought I'd do a sawbones.
Actually, now that you mention it, I feel like publican feels better for a tired dad, so I think I'm going to go that way.
Cool. And Jesse, did you have one in mind?
I was kind of leaning either towards mad scientist or politician, but I hadn't really been able to pick between the two.
Okay. Is there a aspect or what aspects of each are the most appealing to you, I suppose?
So, as a digitarian, she is from money and also a leader, a natural-born leader. And so I thought politician might be good for that, making connections with the local politicians, and so that everybody had the resources and was able to get the things that they needed. But she's very, very technology oriented, and it's not engineer technology. It's new technology and creating something new and different from the old. So that's where mad scientist was coming from.
Well, and is there an aspect of that you want to steer harder into, or do you want to sort of explore kind of the, because the way I'm seeing it, and by all means, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like, you know, the character is very much into this concept of pursuing that aspect of looking for these new technologies, of the thrill of discovery, things along those lines. So, you know, to my mind, it's like, do you want to steer further into that, or do you want to have that sort of conflicting, not necessarily in opposition, but a conflicting interest? You know what I mean?
You know what? Jones makes no sense. This is silly. Yeah, Jones, actually, they're all about looking for treasure troves of gear and technology and scrap. That's Jones. I don't know why I was thinking anything different.
Beautiful. Cool. And I know I've missed Michael, right? Is that all I've missed so far in roles?
Oh, no, you got me.
That was me. This was my dastardly plan to get everyone to go before me.
Oh, very good.
It worked beautifully. I think I'm going to go with primitive, because I did want to have some combat stuff, because like I said, she's very protective, but also it does seem to have some like survival skills there. There's like the edges with the animal handling, which I think feels good with like trying to take care of people while also having a combat tilt to it.
Beautiful. Cool. And so as you've selected those, the next thing that you have to choose is your society path. And those begin on page 66. Now, this is a place where you, as the players, will have a slightly better knowledge of this than I myself, as the story guide, have at the moment, in terms of how much overlap there are between the societies, how much interaction is considered quote unquote normal, whether it's of benefit to sort of stack up and be related to, to a couple of the societies, or if cosmopolitan spread of societies is more, is common, advantageous, and what you want. So based on your familiarities with the setting, what would you say in terms of approach of making that work? Is this something where we kind of want to steer to a couple of select societies, or we want to just everybody kind of have a free for all and grab what you grab?
I'm up to hear what other people are interested in, because with societies, that's actually the one that I've had the hardest time finding one that really fits the persona.
I actually was going to make a request. There is a lovely society called Creed, but is clearly meant for priests. But I view this character as Church of Darwin, survival of the fittest. Not a priest, but actively practicing member of that particular faith. So I wanted to see if I could take Creed and all the juicy stuff there, but pop Church of Darwin as a label, as the faith. Also okay if no.
I don't have any objection to that. The one place where it might merit us looking at is when we get into the edges of that, because I do need to take a look and see convincing order. I think I recall exactly what that does, but I need to take a look and see what faithful does. Mm-hmm. It may be of benefit for us to swap that out for a different edge to better reflect that society, but I have no objection to that. If we want to do a little bit of customization of paths, that's fine by me too. So just if you could because your memory is, I almost guarantee, better than mine. Make a note of when we get to edges, let's talk about faithful. But other than that, yeah, that's totally cool by me.
Awesome.
As long as the other players are all also cool with that. How about you, Jesse? Any ideas there?
Yeah, I was thinking of a settlement as my society, because she's all about making that her long-term goal is to make the quality of life better for her specific settlement, her society. So that's what I thought would be the best fit.
Well, and while we're discussing, I think that's great. And while we're discussing that, do you all have a common point of origin in mind for your group? My concept, I guess, overall would place you all on the road for one reason or another, and we can kind of work towards maybe what might have set you on that path as we're kind of finishing up crafting the characters and things along those lines. It's one of the things I want to kind of tackle during the session 0. But would you all prefer to have, like, this is the settlement we came from as one place? Would you like to have fallen into work together mid-travels? Or would you like us to begin the game with maybe your first meeting? I mean, that is something we could arrange as well. Almost the idea of you being brought together by an outside force to fulfill some duty.
I mean, I'm pretty open. I didn't have any like specific location in mind so far in thinking about this character. I will say that I'm totally up for what everyone else wants to do, but I tend to prefer it when like characters already have some connections with each other, because I think it feels better to be able to poke at those connections rather than just we're strangers that met up. I know that takes a little bit more of work, but I don't think it would take terribly long to set up some background ties and whatnot between people.
Sure. Did you have a settlement in particular in mind, Jesse, or just the idea that there is a home and we can kind of figure out where that home is?
That there is a home and that we can figure out where that home is. I'm fine with starting on the road. I can make it pretty much anything.
Cool.
Hey guys, for those of us who've been playing the LARP for a very long time, this is our one opportunity to choose any of the settlements that none of us have been able to play around in.
That is true. And if it helps at all, the action is going to largely be taking place in kind of what is currently Western Pennsylvania. Will be most of the setting of the story. So, if that makes any difference whatsoever as you're sort of figuring those things out. But yeah,
do any of you have
places you haven't been?
Do any of you have fandom sites from it?
Well, I mean, I'm always partial to the Overgrowth because that's where the monsters live, and the giant mushroom trees and the crazy crystals and all that haywire stuff. Which you cannot bring into a live experience, because how do you replicate that?
There's a number of what ended up becoming Digitarian settlements in the Overgrowth.
Let's do it.
Oh, we're from where monsters are.
Beautiful.
We are the monsters.
Wolfman Scott Nards.
You keep making those Monster Squad references, and we're going to get along famously. All right, so we have settlement. We have you were going to go with the Creed, and then you had settled on Jones, right? So that leaves us with 3 that are unsettled at the moment. Yes, Chris, what did you have in mind?
I was also thinking Creed, but in an itinerant wandering priest kind of way. I actually thought this could be really helpful in our establishing bonds because I can have been anywhere or met any of you at any time because he's very just like, I mean, wherever the infection is my home. So everywhere is my home. I can go anywhere and I'm home, baby. So, you know, if you've ever shared a drink with like a weird sleepy mushroom dad on a caravan or in a hovel somewhere, like it could have been my boy Emil.
I haven't, but God, do I want to now?
Please call me sport.
I now just have an image of you as the caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland sitting on a mushroom.
But like a little disgruntled, but too tired to like act on being disgruntled. So maybe just gruntled. I feel like he's a little gruntled.
Middling gruntle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have absolutely zero objection to doubling up on these. I think they're diverse enough that there's no concerns about like, you know, making sure the characters are different presentations and things along those lines. So yeah, I think that's cool. So we have the two creeds. Michael, you were thinking in terms of society. What were you thinking?
I was going back and forth between settlement and the scythe.
Okay.
But the scythe requires for me to go fallow hopes, and fallow hopes are really an antagonist group to every other type of player here. So I don't really want to do that.
Okay.
So I think I'll end up going settlement.
Okay.
After the fallow hope, because I see that the fallow hope is the example, but I don't see where it says it has to be fallow hope.
That's true. I mean, and again, and two, we can do a little bit of customization if we needed to, but if you wanted to draw from those elements, the skill elements, the edge elements, but be focused maybe in a more, but the drive behind that be focused in a different direction.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Fallow Hope's priest in there literally is just one of the examples.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, you can mold it a little bit to fit a concept. I mean, this you've mentioned a lot the character's faith, the character's desire to sort of build this, get this word out, and maybe.
You know, we'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it could be driven by like almost even like the belief that for whatever reason, these people or one aspect of the activities that you're engaged in right now is part of the plan, and it is your job to see that plan is seen through. And if that means cutting through an entire fucking swath of monsters on the way to get there, then you're the guy.
That's a great Tuesday.
So I mean, that could kind of be the aspect that we play with from that. So you've kicked the can all the way down the road, Heather. What do you think?
Hey, I didn't do that. I didn't do it on purpose this time. So I was looking at the Crimson Caravan at first, but the more we were talking and we were talking about the overgrowth, I think I also want to go settlement.
Okay.
I like the idea of like carving out a home amongst this like really like, I mean, you know, all of the wasteland is dangerous, but this especially dangerous area. And I think it could be fun to use that to get some connections with Jesse's character too. Excellent.
So go ahead and mark down your society paths, and you marked down one dot in those as well. And yeah, I think that lends us toward, especially with sort of the group that we've got and the skill sets that we're starting to see emerge, you know, this may be something where you all had been, whether or not you originated from, but had been in this settlement, in this sort of embattled area, and have gotten together to, you know, maybe the settlement is at that crucial tipping point where if there's not some new supplies brought in, not some new resources brought to bear, that you're either going to grow beyond the ability to keep it safe, or you're going to need to start breaking off into another group. So kind of maybe you all either volunteered or were voluntold to get out there and find some new resources, just again, throwing that idea out there, and feel free to fold, spindle, mutilate, manipulate that idea, or, cast aside. It sounds silly, but that's kind of what I immediately thought of as I'm hearing these stories sort of come together. So now that we've all got our paths chosen, each path will award you certain traits. I just need to get back up to where that gets us. So you gain, each of your paths will list 4 skills. For each of those paths, so that's where the boxes next to your skills on that character sheet come in. If you want to go ahead and just take the boxes that apply to your path skills, you have 3 dots that you may distribute among the skills that each path provides you. If a path, or if 2 paths provide the same skill, it just means that you've doubled up and that you can draw from both pools if you so choose for that skill. And so you can break those up however you choose within the path skills. So it's 3 for each set of 4. Does that make sense? Cool.
So sorry, I'm going to restate just to make sure I am on the same page. So like settlement will give me 3 dots to put in the skills it's listed, and then primitive will give me 3 as well.
Yes.
Got it. Cool.
As does your strain as well.
Cool.
Okay, so strain,
Right. Strain should
society,
have,
and role.
Yep, they should each have, as you look at each one in the book, they should each have 4 skills listed. And then once you have distributed those dots, you get another pool that you can spend wherever you like. I don't want to throw too many numbers at everybody all at once, but once you've distributed your path skill points, you get a set of 6 points that you can spend wherever. So you can also spend those to bolster path skills, or you can spend them in non-path skills if you'd like. And none of your skills can go above 5. Does that make a fair bit of sense to everyone?
I may ask you to repeat it once I finish this first part. But
By all means, yeah, of course, happy to. And if you'd like to sort of share your skill assignments as you get them done, or ask, feel free to coordinate too. Feel free to say, hey, I know we're both doing this path. I was thinking these skills. Not that there's anything wrong. Teamwork is definitely rewarded in this system. So, if you can focus a whole bunch of effort on everybody being very good at one skill, and there are some benefits to it, but also, if you want to go for a broader approach, you have the freedom to do that. Another reason for doing the session zeros like this is to kind of encourage you to not only build the characters that you want, but the unit that you want to have.
So go ahead.
I just had a question about one of the skills. Like most of these are pretty self-explanatory, but like in what kind of situations would you use integrity, like functionally?
So integrity represents sort of your ability to ward off mental and social influence, as well as your ability to maintain focus. So it's kind of your cognitive integrity, I guess, would be one way to expand on it.
Got it. Thank you.
I think I'm going to... Sorry, go ahead.
I thought Michael was going to speak a moment ago, but...
Go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to throw it out there. I'm probably going to go pretty hard on empathy, integrity, and then like little culture, little lore, because like I feel like from the character's perspective, like lore, mom and they taught me when they fake it. So, but like also still a little learned.
Sure.
I'm glad you're doing empathy because I'm going to have no bedside manner.
Perfect. And what were you going to say, Michael? Sorry.
I was actually going to go with lore as well, so I can just have enough information to debate, argue, and be insufferably right, even when I'm horribly wrong.
I thought we were avoiding real world parallels.
I'm going to go bury myself. I'll be right back.
Ouch.
The shovel's in the basement if you need it.
Fine down here. All right.
And once you have your skill points spent, then you will get to choose a skill trick and specialties if they apply to your skills. So any skill that has 4 or 5 dots in it, you can choose a specialty, which is an area of expertise that you focused in that studying. And what happens is it acts as an enhancement if you're using another skill and your specialty is applicable, if this makes sense, right? So let's say, for example, you had a empathy specialty in emotions, and you were trying to plead with someone to take a course of action, so you're making a leadership role. Your empathy specialty in emotions would apply because you're making an appeal to emotion. Does that make sense? If you're looking into somebody who's been shot and you're trying to figure out how they were shot, if you have a specialty in a certain type of firearms, that may apply to the investigation related role, to the like a science role as you're trying to figure out the ballistics, or things along those lines. So they're cross-pollination effectively.
How much is the pool that you get skill points after you've spent the 9 that you have?
It's 6. Yep. So once you go through your path skills, you have 6 additional points that can spend however you like.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's totally fine. Absolutely. And if you look underneath the skill descriptions, which begin on page 86, I do believe those are where your... I might be rolling knowledge wrong game. Hold on one second. I was digging in the wrong place. Yes, I was. If you look on page 68, I apologize. Each of the skills is broken down with a list of skill tricks underneath it. Every character begins with 1 skill trick. It may only be used in a skill that you have at 3 dots or higher. If you have built your character without any skills that are 3 dots or higher, you can choose one of your higher skills to apply the skill trick to. You just won't be able to use it until you get 3 dots in it. But if you look through there, these skill tricks are sort of little extra knacks that you can perform with a little bit of extra oomph. They're triggered by spending a what's the word I'm looking for? Currency. That are
momentum.
Yeah, called momentum. And you gain momentum. You start with a certain pool of momentum. at the beginning of the game, and then you gain more momentum, typically as consolation for failure. So in the event that you have a failed die roll, in the event that something tragic befalls your characters, things along those lines, momentum can be applied to the momentum pool. That momentum pool is shared and is generally spent by group approval. So in order to activate one of the skill tricks, they usually cost 1 momentum. Sometimes they will cost 2. And typically to activate a momentum, you'll ask the group, do you mind if I spend this? And people will vote a yay or nay to it. There are some other circumstances under which you can spend momentum. You can reroll failed dice with momentum. And there are certain other abilities that may or may not be triggered with momentum expenditures. But yeah, and the skill tricks are all pretty neat. They tend to be somewhat focused, particular situation dependent. But I would say definitely, look those over for the skills that you've got. And if you have any questions about how one of them works, by all means, please ask. Was everyone able to spend their skill points in total?
Yeah, I'm working on skill tricks and being sassy in the text message.
Yes. As one does.
I am, so if I have 3 points to spend on my strain path skills, but I don't see where those are listed.
They should be listed in the strain description. Let me just see if I can dig that page up for you real quick. Which strain were you again?
Tainted?
It'd be in the lineage.
Yep,
it's in the lineage header, I think.
Under
mutant.
Mutant? Yep, so that would be culture, empathy, persuasion, subterfuge if they fall under mutant.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Please feel free to throw me out a window, but it's a total of 15 points to start that we have to distribute. Okay.
Absolutely correct.
And as long as you've got minimum 3, you get the first skill trick.
Well, you can choose. Yeah, you get 1 skill trick in total.
Got it. Thank you.
So you would need to apply that to a skill that's 3 or higher. Only in the event that if you don't have a skill that's 3 or higher, you pick one, but you just don't get to use it yet. And then as gameplay progresses, you can purchase more skill tricks, and any skill that's at that level is eligible for you to purchase skill tricks for. So you can dump a bunch of XP into skill tricks if you'd like, provided you have the skills to support it. And then if you've got your skills and tricks figured out, we can get into the expenditure for attributes and sort of an explanation of how those function. If you want me to wait a few moments, I can certainly do that as well.
So I'm looking at the skill tricks. What's a character's scale?
So scale comes into play when you have separate. If, for example, if you have like a vast difference in size, I believe most of the time in Dystopia Rising, when you're dealing with scale, you're going to be dealing with either like vehicle to person type challenges or like huge hordes of the undead, for example, will start to have scale. If I'm not mistaken, the scale chart in Dystopia Rising begins at scale 1. I will have to verify that real fast. But when you have a difference in scale, that will act as either a enhancement to the character with the higher scale or a complication or increased difficulty to the character with lower scale. If that scale gap gets greater than 3, the higher scale, generally speaking, just flat out wins. So for example, if you're trying to shoot with a scale 1 weapon, something that's at scale 4, it's too thick, too tough for that scale to penetrate. Does that make sense? So it allows you to, without having to introduce massive dice pools, be able to represent these vast differences in ability.
Got it, I think. If it comes up, you'll tell me.
That is true. I will. And scale is a situation where, 99% of the time it's very straightforward, and 1% of the time it requires a little bit of fancy footwork on the part of everyone who's collaborating to tell the story. So because it can apply in a narrative situation too, especially when you start getting into skill tricks, things along those lines, where you might wind up with scale, when you're in a leadership action or something like that, where now it becomes about affecting larger groups of people. Looks like psionics also tends to employ scale a little bit. Like in the looking at skill tricks, for example, there was one I would assume that offered scale.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a common use of skill tricks, is if you want to achieve scale on a roll.
I think I got my skills.
I think I'm also good.
Beautiful. So I guess our next step is, just to clarify and correct myself, the scale table does begin with scale 0 for the average person tough enough to survive and thrive in the wastes. So, and if you want to familiarize yourself a little bit with scale and how it works, the table is on page 97. And that gives you kind of a basic overview. There is scale that applies in narrative, which just adds a multiplier to successes or to a static trait. And then dramatic scale is when you're getting into like a direct combat, then it acts as like an enhancement differential. Make sense? Beautiful. Does anybody have any questions about skill tricks, or are the skills like done? Specialties applied for everything that's at 4 or 5?
Yeah, I got none of those.
Excellent. Well, then let's go ahead. We're creeping up on the hour and a half mark, so let's go ahead and break down attributes, and then we'll take a 5 for biological and technological needs, if that's all right with everyone who's present. So for creating your attributes, you get a certain number of traits to apply to each group. You'll notice that there are 3 lines that run horizontal across your sheet, and there are 3 groups that are grouped vertically, right? Those lines going across are considered your approaches. The groups that are vertical are considered your arenas. So you will choose the arena that looks most important to you. And with that, you will distribute 6 dots among those. Your secondary arena would be 4 dots, and your tertiary arena would be 2 dots. And I'm going to go ahead and put those numbers in the chat just so that you've got them at quick access, but they are also explained on page 59. And once you've kind of decided how you'd like to break those down, and I'm happy to explain what any of those attributes represents, though they are relatively self-explanatory. I am happy to elaborate on their definitions if needed. Once you have got those broken down, you'll look at the approaches, the lines going horizontal. You'll see they're listed as being force, finesse, or resilience. And you'll select one of those to be your character's favorite approach. This is kind of what they tend to lean on the most when they're trying to exert their actions onto the world around them. You'll choose one of those to be your favorite approach. You'll mark the box next to the favorite approach, and then you will increase each of the attributes under that favorite approach by 1. If that takes one of those attributes above 5, then you move that dot to another attribute within that approach. See what I'm saying? So nothing can go above 5.
So 642 vertical, and then 1 horizontal that gets a buff and 1 each.
Yep.
Okay.
And the first dot that's marked on your sheet is free. That doesn't count against your 642.
I'd love to know what focus people are eyeing. I'm debating between force and resilience.
I went finesse.
Finesse.
And another thing about Storypath to consider is, though there are some rules throughout the book that will dictate a certain combination, generally speaking, when you make your rolls, you'll say, I want to do X. I want to shoot the zombie. I'll say, well, that's a firearms roll. And I'll ask you what attribute you would like to lean on in order to use that. And this is where you get to sort of narratively decide how you're executing it and pair an attribute with that skill. Anything that resembles a reasonable explanation is a valid explanation. So you might shoot a zombie with dexterity because you are very good at hand-eye coordination. Or you might shoot a zombie with composure because you're able to keep your shit together while that zombie's eating your friend's face. Or it might be resolved because you've just decided this guy's got to go, and that's how you're going to do it. So you can sort of cross-match those. There are very few preordained pairings, and even in those cases, it's like initiative rolls and perception basically are where you run into the preordained pairings. Make sense? Cool. Well, if you'd like, did everybody get their attributes already broken out? Figured it might go pretty in a few minutes. Well, if you'd like, let's go ahead and take our 5. I will leave the recording going. Those of you who are watching at home, you'll never even notice we were gone. All right, we have returned. So we were just buttoning up attributes, correct? And did everyone understand the explanation of how they function? Did anyone have any questions about their functionality?
I think I got it so I took a skill trick.
Yes.
I just made a note. I called it proper powder, which is changing a character's scale for use of firearms for that one action.
Okay, cool.
So like the idea behind it is looking out there going, oh no, I need Modaka.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly acceptable for a skill trick. Cool. And what skill tricks did you wind up going with, Katie? Or skill trick and specialties, if any?
I went with Road Rage because I felt that suited the character as a douche jock. And then for my specialty in medicine, I did field medicine.
Beautiful. Excellent. Any specialties, Jesse? And what skill trick did you settle on?
No specialties. I only had up to 3 in my skills, but I took the skill trick challenge.
Beautiful. And that's under which skill?
Leadership.
Excellent. Cool. And Heather, what did you get your attributes sorted out?
Yes, I did.
Excellent. And what skill, tricks, and specialties did you go with?
Didn't have enough for specialty, but I hit wide strike in close combat.
Excellent. Very handy. And Chris, what did you wind up settling on?
Might need you to re-explain specialties.
Sure.
That kind of flew over my head.
No problem. So any skills that you have a 4 or a 5 in, you would be able to choose an aspect of that skill that you are particularly well versed in.
Okay.
When you use the specialty is if you're rolling another skill and that knowledge that you have, that special knowledge you have, would apply.
Where in the rule book does that live?
So specialties are explained and
I was looking and trying to find
page
it.
86.
Okay. I'll pull that up. And in the meantime, skill trick, I took lie under integrity. Spend 1 momentum to increase the target of a roll to interrogate by 1 for the rest of a scene.
Beautiful. Cool. Yeah, and so that's another thing that's interesting that can be done with skill tricks is where you change the physical target number on the dice that you need to roll. So now that we've got all those things in place,
I'm actually going to change my skill trick to scatter shot.
Okay. And what is that? What does scatter shot provide?
It's under firearms. Character can fan the hammer of your weapon at blinding speed, or notch several arrows at once. Either way, character using complex action to attack multiple foes at once.
Excellent. Cool. And so to go over this bit before we dive into the edges section. When you're making your dice rolls, I had mentioned before combining the skills and the attributes. The dice pools that you generate are pools of 10-sided dice. The target number, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, in Dystopia Rising for most characters, most of the time is going to be target number 8. And so that's going to be what you're looking for successes. If you were to receive a 10, anybody can correct me if I'm wrong here. I do believe that they do roll again in this system. And if you, and they continue to do so. There are some weapons and abilities that will give you what's called the 9 again rule, where you are able to reroll 9s as well and count those as additional successes. Those are generally very circumstantial. Make sense? Difficulty refers to the number of successes you need in order for something to be considered a success. Most of the time when you roll, it's going to be a difficulty 1. So if you got a success on the dice, you have a success. But some things will be at a higher difficulty, meaning that you'll have to hit 2, 3, maybe even 4 successes before it starts to count. The other negatively impacting aspect that can happen is complications. Complication generally provides for the ability to succeed, but at a cost or at some other sort of difficulty. An example I like to use is if you're in a fist fight standing on top of a roof in the rain, that might be a complication of 2 because of the pitch of the roof and the wetness. And so you make a roll and you only get 1 success on that roll. The story guide might say, okay, you can choose to hit them, but you're going to slip because the roof is wet. Whereas if you would need to get a number of successes equal to the complication to buy that off and have that not affected. So you spend successes as a currency effectively to buy off those complications. Does that make sense? Enhancements provide you with automatic successes as long as one of your dice on the roll hits your target number. Equipment will provide successes or provide enhancement. Teamwork can generate enhancement. Sometimes a power or skill trick or things along those lines. Specialties, those can all provide enhancement as well. So, even if you have a weapon that gives you a +3 enhancement on that same rainy roof, but you only get one success on the dice, the enhancements are enough that you can now buy off the complication and not slip and fall. Make sense? That's pretty much your dice situation. And again, I know all these things, it's firing a lot of information at you, and a lot of these probably aren't really going to click until you are throwing dice around in the moment. But I just want to make sure we're giving a brief overview of what to expect. Now that we've got through all that, the other aspect that we need to look at is your edges. So each of your paths should list one or two edges. You start play with the edges listed under your path, subject to a couple of notes. Let me just bring this up so I'm reading it directly to you so I know I'm not making a mistake with it. So you gain all 6 of the edges that are offered. I believe it's 2 per path, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the edge has variable dots in the edge's description, you will gain the first dot in the edge. If 2 paths would give you the same edge, if it's variable, that means that the edge would increase to 2. If it's not variable, then that allows you to pick a different edge at an equal or lesser value. Okay? So if you have 2 paths that give you 2 dot edges each, at the same 2 dot edge, you would be able to pick a different 2 dot edge for the second path. Does that make sense? Excellent. And then if the edges are listed as having a prerequisite, we may need to make a little adjustment to your sheet if you don't meet that prerequisite. I don't believe that's a concern with most of the starting edges, but there's one way to find out, and let's dive into it. So as with your skills, the edges that you get for your strain are listed under the associated lineage. And I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, those also have their page number hot linked and listed. Somebody's going to get pulled over.
Welcome to Lancaster.
Yes. So as you look at the various lineages, you'll find the page number is linked in the PDF.
So would you recommend we put all 6 down in our edges and then fill out the dots?
Yeah, I mean, if that's easier for you, that also would allow you to, if nothing else, you can always use Control F on your PDF to find the edges faster. So you got those written down. And once you've got those starting edges picked out, you gain an additional 4 dots of edges that you can purchase freely. Whatever edges you can afford, as long as you have the prerequisites for them. And there is a rather extensive list, so I'm happy to discuss those, look at some ideas and concepts. Help with any questions that you might have about those.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask if you could just break down the allocation of dots. How many we have again?
For the edges?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have an edge that is from your path that has just a straight value,
mm-hmm.
so like it's just a 2 dot edge,
mm-hmm.
you just gain that edge at its 2 dots. So you have whatever is listed, right?
Okay.
If the edge is variable, so if it's like 1, 2, 3 dots, you just get 1 dot of it for being part of your path.
Okay. And so you take all of them for all 3 paths?
Right, correct.
Okay, cool.
So,
Sorry.
Yep. So if all 3 of your paths, all of your edges that are listed are variable, you'll have 1 dot in all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But if one of them is like rated 2, it doesn't require you to spend additional points from elsewhere to get those rating 2 or even a rating 3 edge if it's listed on your path. I don't believe any of them are rating 3, but there's a lot of edges, and I absolutely could be wrong. I have not memorized the book.
No worries. I just need a few minutes.
No, by all means. Again, take your time. There's no rush. And if there are any questions that arise, do feel free to ask. Like I said, I do believe that where they're listed in the paths, they're also hot linked to the edges page. But the lineage is, we might have to go back to the lineage to get that link.
You may have said this and I didn't hear it because I was copying info over, so I apologize if that's the case. With the 6 free points, if you have an edge that's at the 1 point and you want to raise it to the 2nd point or the 3rd point, is it just 1 of those freebie points for levels? Okay.
Yeah, they spend on a 1-for-1 basis, and it's 4 points for edges. It's 4 points.
4 points.
Free.
Got it.
And I put that in the chat as well. But yeah, they spend on a 1-for-1 basis. The only other thing that you need to be concerned about when you're spending those free points is that you do have to meet whatever prerequisites. So some of the edges will have like you can only be part of 1 lineage to take it. Some of the edges will say you have to have a certain skill rating or a certain attribute rating or something along those lines. There are even some edges, I think, that have another edge as a prerequisite.
Thank you.
No problem. And they are somewhat loosely, they're organized by categories in the edges chapter. So if you start at page 73, I think is where the edges first show up. You'll have like the strain edges are all listed together, and then there's mental edges, physical, social. What else have we got? Style edges, which fall into like combat type things. And they run down to page 81.
It's a lot. It's going to take a hot minute.
There are a few, though they do go pretty fast. And as you're looking toward concepts, thinking about like kind of what you had in mind for your character may help sort of dial in a bit. Like, for example, one of the open edges is Scavenger. It's a 1-dot edge. Your character is an expert at locating useful resources in even the most unlikely of places. You gain enhancement to actions to find food, water, or scrap. That might be a good thing, for Jesse's character, because that's very central to the identity. Tech whiz. If it's got moving parts, character knows all about it. You add half your rating, and a second skill is enhancement, as long as the skill is used to operate the device. So if you're trying to fix a gun, you can add up to half your firearms as enhancement, things like that. So, and all of those are on like page 77. So if you look at the edge names, they're usually pretty good at kind of like triggering like, oh, this is something that is conceptually close to kind of what my character is looking for. And if you look at if I'm not mistaken, let me make sure I'm not talking out of my tailpipe here. Okay, yeah. So if you go into the bookmarks on your PDF and go into the chapters, you can hot link to the categories of edges. So it's got your strain edges, mental, physical, social, and style are all hot linked on the bookmarks to help you hop around a little bit. And now we had discussed faithful for your character, Katie, right?
Yeah. Could I instead, because that's effectively, this is, you take all the psionic things if you want, and I don't want to do any with, I want to be a priest. Could I instead swap that out for Unshakable Devotion? It's a 1 point edge, and it's your character's faith is strong and immutable. No matter what she puts her faith in, she cannot be swayed from the path once she's set on it. Anyone attempting to target the character with an influence action to change her mind or make her turn against her faith suffers +2 difficulty, or the aggressor changes his own attitude positively toward the object of her faith.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. What was the other edge that you gained from that path?
The other, convincing orator.
Oh, okay, yeah. Then yes, those two complement each other just fine. I have no objection to that whatsoever.
Awesome, thank you.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. Anyone still hunting for their path edges?
Just allocating my 4 dots.
Beautiful. And one thing, I'm sure this probably is less of a concern for those of you who are very familiar with the setting, but one thing I might recommend to folks who are engaging the setting for the first time as you're building a character is when you're selecting your strains, noting the lineage that your strain comes from, like in parentheses on your character sheet behind your strain, because a lot of the edges are broken out by lineage as a prereq. So that might just be a handy piece of information to have right there in your strain path. So, yeah, there's some pretty neat things among the general. Was anyone looking into the psionics or the faith powers? Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking through the faith powers right now.
Beautiful. And that's an aspect that is unique to Dystopia Rising evolution of the Storypath games. So we can learn together. And those faith edges themselves are listed
in chapter 9, Brain Bleed, I believe. Yeah, that's where I am.
Yep. Yeah, because that's also got your psi powers, right?
Yep.
What page was that? Sorry.
184.
Thank you.
Oh, I forgot how cool some of the minor psi powers are. It's all the shit you can't do in a LARP. Luminescence, precognitive strike, ghost sounds.
Okay, yeah, and these are accessible to anyone who's got a dot in the psionicist edge.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's ones that are that are psionics, but they require faith.
Now, and again, you may know this better than I do. Are there, with the faith-based ones, are faith powers limited only to the ones that require faith, or can they take any of the psionic?
So there's an edge that you can buy that's psionics, and then there's an edge for faith, but I'm not sure, to be honest.
I'm pretty sure faith is limited to faith and psionics is limited to psionics. I mean, if you purchase both the psionics and the faith, then you could mix and match. But I think otherwise, if you just choose one or the other, that's your path.
Right, because I'm trying to see like which of these are specifically faith-based. So we get to learn together. It's fun stuff. Because each of the psionics is tied to a skill, which is neat.
Oh, there's another section that starts on page 174, which is the specific edges just for faith.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, there we go. And those...
Bacchanalia. Faith healing.
Yeah, these also offer like your excuse me, the distinctions of faith on page 175 is very interesting.
And then there's the faith edges, which have like specific requirements as well.
Yep.
Okay, so as long as you've got the faithful edge and it's not restricted, you're good.
And you have to meet, just like with any other edge, you have to meet whatever prerequisites are listed.
Yeah, got it.
And so you can, under the distinctions of faith section, it will list like which factions do not. I assume the restricted by are the ones that do not allow it. Yeah. So that's cool. Yes. Okay. And so there are also certain conditions that you can acquire that will gather momentum for you if you attempt to do a certain action while you have that condition. Just notice that because choking on lies is hilarious to me. It's pretty neat. So we have two characters that are faithful, correct?
3, I think.
Do I count?
If you want to.
I was gonna say, were you taking the faithful edge? I guess would be the question.
Yeah, because yes, I did, but then it kind of reads like it shouldn't apply to.
Well,
you're the most nuclear family concept I have heard in a long time.
You're like grave mind. You're like grave mind cult nuclear family.
Yeah,
that's what you are.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, and as long as it's not like specifically restricted in the edge, I have no problem with you, scooting it to fit the concept. Like that's fine. Like taking that out of your free edges and whatnot is fine. If it's not provided by a path, you can still access it, as far as I understand. So that part's fine. Was anyone psionic specifically? No. Okay. Cool.
I'm technically both.
Okay.
But I think for the character, I'm going to go more faithful than that. So I'll just keep my one little dot in psionicist and move my other dot.
Cool. I have no objection to that either. And like I said, that also does open up any psionics edges that you can afford if you want to pick them up. Partially asking just so that I know what sections to make sure I do a good brush up on before next session.
Yeah.
Because full disclosure, it is the section that I'm the least familiar with.
Yeah. I'll stick with my one dot.
Does anyone, how is the expenditure of edges going, Jesse?
I am set.
Excellent. What edges did you end up settling in?
So for the things that I get from my paths, I have wealth, factoid, balance step, scavenger, big-hearted, and entertainer. And then I picked up tech whiz and convincing orator.
Beautiful. Excellent. Heather, have you settled on your paths or edges, or are you still working on it?
Yeah, no, I think I got it. So the ones I start with are Master of Disguise, Hardy, Animal Handler, Direction Sense, Big-Hearted, and Entertainer. And then I also ended up taking Adrenaline Spike and Hair Trigger Reflexes.
Both very, very lovely to have. Excellent. Katie, did you settle on your edges yet? Or are you still working on them?
Yeah, I'm all set. I wound up with from my paths, Catch a Ride, Wasteland Connections, Mentor, Skilled Healer, Convincing Orator, Unshakable Devotion, and then I put 4 dots spread out between Adrenaline Spike, Direction Sense, and Ambidextrous.
Excellent. All very handy to have. The Direction Sense is super handy, given how easy it is to get lost. Michael, have you settled on your edges? Or are you still working?
Nope. Almost there.
Chris, still working on yours?
I think I'm good. So from my paths, I got Meditation, Scion Assist, Convincing Orator, wow, Faithful, Entertainer, and Time Sense. I didn't pick up any additional ones, but I did distribute my dots between adding to Convincing Orator, cannot say that word, and Faithful.
Okay, excellent. And then, so were there, you didn't pick up any of the actual faith edges then yet, or no?
So as long as I meet the requirement, I can pick that up, right?
Yes.
Okay, let me take a look at those again.
Yeah, because I don't, and you'd have to shift points, I think, at this point to do it.
Yeah, yes,
right?
I would.
But as long as you meet the prerequisites, you can take them.
Okay.
So there's an option. And otherwise, you can use the, I didn't follow if the faiths themselves had basic powers. Because I believe like psionics, any psionicist can use the basic powers that are under them. But I don't believe that's the case with the faiths. They just have their sort of categories.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you spot something in there that indicates that that's inaccurate, or if I discover it's inaccurate before next session, I'll let you know.
I am finishing up now.
Okay. And what have you settled on?
I said finishing up, not finished.
Perfect. You should note that your character will have starting gear determined by your roll path. So it's really kind of just a matter of copying those items down onto your sheet. But let me get that gear section so that you can see exactly how those things are applied and what works. The equipment starts on page 109. Chapter 5, Acts of Violence. And so those describe what your weapon tags and armor tags represent specifically from that starting equipment. And then if you go past the actual combat rules themselves, I believe is where you start running into your additional equipment. Okay. Check that there.
Okay, got it. That's
Go ahead and let me know what you got.
Okay, so as an Ascensor, I get meditation. From my professions and whatnot, I get fast draw sniper, chosen weapon pistol, tough, and unshakable devotion.
Okay.
And then the points I spent was I took 1 point in faithful, so that I can get the one level for proof of faith, which allows me to make small miracles happen.
Okay.
Then I took one level of Psionicist, so I could take one level of Death Shroud.
Excellent.
More importantly, so I can do ambient effects. Ambience.
Love it. I also have just included the other gear section, starts on page 137. That covers things like scrap, covers crafting rules are broken in there, talks about, but there's also example gear listed, including some sample weapons, guns, explosives, armor, vehicles, all the fun stuff. Food and hooch, medical supplies, tech gear. All that sort of is between page 137 and 143.
Oh, if I'm reading this correct, with wealth, it says I can buy any tier 1 item for free, I think, if I read it right.
Yeah, effectively, anytime that you're in a settlement or anywhere where a trade is occurring, you can just acquire a tier 1 item at no cost.
Okay, is it one, or can I acquire all tier 1 items?
I mean, generally speaking, if you would be going into like a mass acquisition, we might start looking at like, okay, well, how are you going to pay for that? But like, if you're like, I need, 3 weapons and a suit of armor and they're all tier 1, I have no objection to that. I would assume that's fine.
Yeah.
If you're like, I'm going to outfit my whole crew, then maybe we need to start talking about actual tracking of currency. But yeah, wealth should allow you to sort of acquire these minor items, quote unquote, without having to worry about bookkeeping is really what it boils down to. Make sense?
Yeah.
And in character creation, I have no objection to you, grabbing a couple extra bits because you've got the wealth edge. Like that's totally fine. And I think it lists. Does it list? Am I misremembering that in that lineage it specifies as well that you can choose a certain number of tier 1 items, or am I just crossing over that edge in my mind with the lineage? Because I know your role gives you starting gear, but I didn't know if the lineage actually gave you any gear in that instance. I might be merging 2 things together in my head. Wouldn't be the first time that's happened.
Let me see. It says your character comes from a long, ridiculously well-off people who have done nothing but hoard wealth and knowledge for generations. As such, you're lucky enough to share in that wealth, whether from an inheritance, a trust fund, or a family with strong technology base. Your character always has easily access to resources. Your character can readily acquire tier 1 supplies and items without spending or trading if she's in a settlement.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, realistically speaking, I have no objection to you stocking up on a bunch of tier 1 things if you'd like, provided you have some means or method of transporting those items, or hilarity of trying to transport. If you're all just walking around with huge backpacks full of stuff that are encumbering and just falling over.
I do love giggles, guys.
It's fine. Just come back when the zombies are done picking at me.
I have a small request in terms of backstory with all of our characters, if that's okay.
By all means, that's what we're here.
I'm a diesel jock, but I don't have a vehicle at the start. So I would like to make a completely ridiculous scenario that we are all involved in where I lost my diesel jock ride somehow. Right. That could be either via gambling or via a crazy raider attack or a zombie attack where it wound up in a ditch and then there's heavy rains and if the ditch flooded and we realized it was a river and it carried it out to sea or something like that.
My only request to piggyback off of yours is that this be a relatively recent incident.
Yeah, that's completely fine. Yes. It can have happened last night as far as I'm concerned. It is really dependent on what everybody is comfortable with and what everybody else would like.
Oh, I'm down for it.
Yeah, I think it sounds fun. In my head, I had this vision of, walking inside a bar and coming back out, and it's like the extreme version of someone having stolen your tires, only it's the entire ride.
Right. There's just like a frame left.
I was just going to say, it's just the bare frame, the little metal sad boy.
They left just the cinder blocks.
Just 4 cinder blocks.
I brought the cinder blocks.
I love that idea. Let's go with that.
Excellent. Perfect.
Walked into a bar, came out to find cinder blocks.
I love it.
Sad day.
They're obviously trying to frame the Yorkers.
Does anyone have any other tech gear questions? Any particular requests or concerns? Were you all able to find the quick reference charts do start on page 141 if you just want to make your lives as easy as possible in terms of acquiring your gear.
So I have a question in regards to stuff like food and rations. Do we have starting money? Or a scrap or universal price point?
Yep. And so you can trade out any of your starting gear for equivalent costs if you find that there's something that's redundant.
I only have 2 items, so I'm keeping both of those.
Also, can I just say that I fund us for food at least?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, especially like up to this point, you keeping people in food is within the realm of your background. So I have no objection to that.
I do start with 3. I really want to call them uppies because that's what I call when I pick up my cat, but I'm going to try not to call it that.
I'm okay with it.
All right. Well, I start with 3 uppies. Sorry. If I were to offer to substitute that for other tier 1 items, what would you say I can do in terms of how many tier 1 items? Because I just don't feel like this is a man who cares about that.
Well, I mean, you would be able to effectively, everything has its UPP cost listed.
Okay.
So yeah, you can just buy them out, and to that end too, if it's not gear you particularly need, you can donate those to the group as well.
That's true. Okay.
I have no objection to you all swapping resources or pooling resources at this point. So from a premise perspective, because we're creeping up on that, there's a couple of final attributes we need to nail down, but just premise wise and kind of what I have in mind for the story, as I said, it's going to be taking place like the Western Pennsylvania region, the Delphian Wastes, effectively. And you will be starting off in Morganstown. So in terms of where you are and where that bar was and where you lost your vehicle. And a tragic incident that no one could have possibly...
Damn, Morganstown.
No one could have possibly seen coming.
The Morganians took your car.
I miss Sheila already.
And
Sheila.
so correct me if I'm wrong, the region that you're discussing originating from is basically just west of there, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Pretty much.
So conceptually, we're looking at you started going east in the hopes of acquiring a new line on resources to help secure and grow the community.
Yeah, and then they stole my car. This is a terrible place.
Not great. Not great. I love it, and that will dovetail nicely to some of the things that I have in mind. Before we get to, I guess while we're, if anyone has any other questions that creep up while we're doing these last bits of character stats.
Sorry, just to make sure I'm on the same page. Our starting gear is based on our roll, correct?
Based on your roll, yes.
Just making sure.
For a moment, I was thinking dice roll, and I was like, "Oh, I did this all wrong."
Nope, based on your roll path. Each of your strains should have a condition that goes with it. So you want to make sure you note that condition and note what triggers your strain condition. That should be, if nothing else, you can provide for that in your, either where it says strain, you can make a note next to it at the top of your sheet, or in your character notes if you want to note what triggers your strain condition. Either one is fine by me as long as you have easy access to it. For your health and stress, you each begin with 3 levels of health. What I do is each of those health levels, you'll see a little box next to it. So I'll check the box for the levels that I do have. And then you'll notice the little blue text that says injury condition, copy edit. I use those to track where the condition originated. So like if there's other notes I need to know about that condition, like I was shot, or this is also a stun, things along those lines. Then you can copy and paste and edit those as needed. So everybody starts with 3, with one of the maimed, 1 injured, and 1 bruised. Do any of you have stamina of 3? Excellent.
I do, yeah.
I do as well.
If you have stamina 3, you gain an additional injured condition.
Okay.
And does anyone have stamina 5? Nope. Okay, cool. And then you also have your stress conditions. So each of you will have 1 troubled, 1 distraught, and 1 haunted. Only characters who have the faithful or psi edges are eligible to gain additional stress conditions. So if you have either of those edges and you have a resolve of 3, you will gain an additional distraught.
Which edges? Sorry.
Either faithful or psi.
And you said a resolve of 3?
Yep, a resolve of 3 gains you an additional distraught condition.
Okay.
And if you have resolve 5, you gain an additional troubled condition.
If you have 3 with both of them, you only get the extra distraught, right?
Right. It doesn't matter if you have both or if you only have one.
Cool.
All of you will have a defense of 1. That is the standard, I'm standing there and you're punching me in my face defense. If you are being attacked, you can roll the most appropriate resistance attribute during that attack without any skills added to add to your defense. And so you can do that anytime you're attacked. So the last thing then that we need to figure out is your path connections.
How does armor rating work?
Your armor rating would be provided by either any armor that you're actually wearing, or if you have like an edge that gives you armor.
I have both, yeah.
They should give you a soft and hard value, correct?
Yes.
So your soft armor increases the difficulty of the inflict injury condition stunt against you. So whatever your soft armor is adds to their difficulty to use that particular stunt. Your hard armor effectively gives you additional bruised health levels. But those track separately. So you'll lose your armor health levels first as long as they apply. and then it starts actually affecting your health levels, because you don't get any, you don't gain any complication from armor health levels being gone. Does that make sense?
Yep, makes perfect sense.
So,
Thank you.
Which does remind me, because I've forgotten to explain this until combat to people before. When you suffer an injury condition, the number that's attached to that condition applies as a complication to the rest of your rolls. So you have to resolve that complication in order to successfully carry out your die action. If you don't, you risk further injuring yourself.
So just to make sure that I understand it, so if I have the injury condition at +1 of a broken finger or a broken arm, I have to get my arm fixed before I can remove a +1 difficulty to actions.
No, they work as a complication instead of a difficulty. So what will happen is, if you have a broken arm and you try to use a close combat action to punch someone, and you do not resolve that complication, you risk further injuring your arm.
Got it.
So you might gain an additional injury condition, or you might get a stunned condition because you're in so much pain from punching someone with a broken arm that now you're like, I can't do anything because ow. That's kind of how that functions. And the circumstances at play can affect those, which is another reason why it's a good idea to sort of track how you received your injuries, because I wouldn't apply a complication to you running if you had a broken arm. That's not going to affect your running speed, but it will affect punching someone, for example. Then the last thing we have is your contacts that come along, or your connections come along from your paths. So each strain and society path gives you resources that you can access thanks to that path. Each path has 3 different types of connection you can draw from. The contact connection is a single person related to the path with whom you have a relationship. This could be a family, friend, romance, a competitor that's somewhat friendly, or something else entirely. The contact has some expertise related to the path and is inclined to do a favor or 2 for you. You can choose one contact connection from your strain path and your society path. You also will gain a access connection from your society path, and the access connection is someone who is like it's not someone, it's more of a place or a piece of equipment. It's something you can get access to because of your society. So if you look under your paths, there should be recommended connections. You can choose from those, or you can extrapolate based on those. Chances are relatively good because we've established that you are out and about, away from home. Your access to some of those contacts may be limited. But I am absolutely willing to discuss kind of how those might come into play on the road. And each of your contacts will have a tag. So the tags are situations that basically the tags allow you to apply. If the tag applies when you're activating that contact, it allows you to apply it as like an enhancement to the roll when you're trying to leverage that contact. Make sense? So like, for example, let's say you have a contact from your path who is, a card dealer, like a card sharp at a casino, right? They might have the informant tag. So if you're going to try to access them to get a hold of information, that informant tag acts as an enhancement when you're trying to get information from them above and beyond just accessing the contact in the first place. Make sense? No? Okay. So you have a contact who has an identity, and you can go to them for anything. You can go to my friend who's works at the casino, and I can ask him if he can get me a gun. He can do his best to try to do that, or he can tell you, no, it's not what I do, based on your die roll. But if you're trying to access the tag that you choose to go along with that contact, you'll get an enhancement to the roll when you're trying to do it. So if you're asking them to get you access to the inside of the casino, like, can you get me into the back door? You can just roll the contact dice, right? But if you are specifically trying to get information for them and they have the informant tag, then you get that bonus. But if they have the tag of like influential, for example, like they have influence within that space, then when you're asking to get in, the tag would apply, so the enhancement would apply. But if you're asking them for what they've heard on the street, they don't have the informant tag, so that doesn't apply. Make sense? Does that clarify a little bit? So yeah, you decide the identity for the two, and then one of them is an access, which is more of like a place or a type of area you can get access to. So the access might not necessarily be a specific location, it might be a type of location. So you might have an access contact that's like, because I'm a diesel jock, I can get into garages. I'd be okay with that. Does that make sense? Or am I rambling here?
So as an example, for my strain, I took the ones they suggested, cultists. So I went with Darwinist cultists. Okay. And then with my profession, which is gunslinger, my society, the Scythe, one of the things they suggested is a weapons crafter. So I added the adjective of unhinged weapons crafter, with that being my access.
Great. Yeah. So you can get so I would interpret that as like if you asked for some particularly like fucked up weapon, then the tag would apply, so you'd have like an enhancement to it. Like, I want something that just takes out eyeballs. Oh, I've got something for you for that.
You know anyone who has a nuke? Asking for a friend.
Right, stuff like that, yeah. Anything that's like super bizarre or particularly brutal. Make sense? Ish. It's a soft system. So I tend to, I'll pull the curtain back just a little bit. I tend to be a relatively permissive, improv-driven, yes and type of story guide. So feel free to go nuts with it. With these ideas as you sort of pulling tags or just thinking of like what kind of person or what type of people might I know. And we can build it together too.
I have one of the suggestions was local leadership.
Okay.
For connections, and then the other one for settlement was town guard. Can I just put like unobservant town guard?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that we can kind of get into anywhere without getting in trouble.
Sure. Yeah, that would be super handy. Yeah, and that would also come in handy again if you're able to approach that contact and say, hey, did you see who tore apart that car? Or have you heard anything on the street about some car parts missing? Stuff like that, that observant would apply, right? The bad news, of course, being that I'm assuming your town guard contact is at home.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's kind of the problem with all of mine is right. I have, like local leadership, which is totally not going to help us at all. And, right. Settlement is all of their suggestions are around the settlement. So
right. Though, excuse me, if you do have a means of like getting a message back to them or something along those lines, like that's the kind of thing where you can tap it and it would come into play, at the speed at which it the news could travel. So, I mean, it's not completely cut off from you. It's just much harder to access in a world that doesn't have cell phones, for example. You know, whereas like if you're, you know, in Trinity Continuum, for example, you know, it's set in the modern, you know, world that's effectively the world outside your window. You know, you can pick up your cell phone and call your contact and say, hey, dude, you know, not so easy to do in Dystopia Rising.
Jesse, I have a small idea as well for you that might make it more relevant. Like in theory, the settlement we came from probably has people going out to trade this, that, and their thing. Maybe they send out town like guards, like trade route guards in some ways with these trade caravans. So maybe you know one of those guards, so more likely to encounter.
Like a trade escort?
Yeah.
So would the tag be like escort in that situation?
The tag can still be observant, okay, right? Because it still applies to them noticing something, right? Another thing, another way that you might be able to approach it, again, due to your lineage, right? You know, I would assume you could say, you know, my contact is going to be more familial based than it is local leadership based, right? So instead of saying I can draw on a person because they're the you know, mayor of this town or whatever, you can say, oh, we're like 14th cousins. I'm from you know, I am of the Boston so-and-sos, you know, that sort of thing, to pull some of that influence as well. You know, to adapt it to more of a road situation.
So familial local leadership?
Yeah, or just like, you know, family of note, right?
Okay.
You know what I mean? So that way you're drawing more on on those relationships as opposed to, so in one town it might be somebody who is in a position of leadership. In another town it might just be an idle rich who isn't quite as useful, you know, and some of that will be determined by any die rolls that you need to make when you access the contact.
Okay.
You know, so you have kind of a built-in explanation for why in some towns it's much more useful than in others. You know, like, oh, we were here and they were on the town council and they had all this neat gear for us and gave us shelter and warmth, and, you know, and went over to this next town and nothing. Yeah. So applying them in those kinds of things, I would be okay with, especially given that we are, you know, kind of one of our core concepts here is we're building a game that we know is going to be a traveling. We know you're not staying in one spot. So yeah, ways you could take advantage of that would be like, you know, having, instead of a town guard, having it be like a road escort. And that too may be something then that narratively you can draw on by proxy. So like maybe the escorts aren't here at this time, but you know, a couple weeks ago, you know, Johnny from our settlement passed through here. You know, any of the guards maybe, you know, play some cards with him or drink with him at the bar. Oh, you did? Okay, well, yeah, I know Johnny, and can you do me this favor? Or can you know, hey, I'm good friends with him, and I would really appreciate. I know he would appreciate, you know, that sort of a thing. So it's kind of like it's a narrative hook that we can then exploit to help find a solution to a situation. You know, and most of the time, if we have some sort of a way that we can draw those elements in, I'll at the very least give you a roll to try and see, right? That makes sense? Cool. So like, for example, with the cultist that Michael was talking about, it might not be that as you're in a settlement away from home, that you're dealing necessarily with a cultist that you directly know, but because you have that cultist contact, you know the signs, the things to say, you know who to approach, where to go to find the right person.
There's
for the crazy eyes
everywhere.
All Right? Does that track for everyone? Does that make sense? Does that seem?
I might need to touch base.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
So starting from the very beginning, not to sort of repeat everything, but like, so we have one access connection.
Right, which is kind of more like a place or a thing you can get a hold of.
Right, and then we have one like contact connection. Right,
and the one contact connection, you have one each for your strain and your
so really
society.
There's
three
connections total.
Yep.
Copy. Okay, cool.
Yep, and the access connection is kind of the easiest one to finagle, because it might be like, I can get into garages. Anywhere I go, I know where to go and who to ask to get somewhere where I can work on my car, or I can get into, this type of business, this type of establishment, this type of, I can get into the cult meetings just fine, that sort of thing.
That actually made it click for me.
Yeah, cool.
I've listed mine.
Beautiful. What have you got?
I have a salty, saltwise engineer who is an informant.
Okay.
In my brain, he's super salty because he hasn't been to see the ocean in so long. I then have a Church of Darwin priest, goes by influential. And I'm totally stealing your diesel jock garages because that sounds great. And I didn't have to think about it.
That's fair. Cool. Anybody else have theirs sorted out or have ideas or questions about them?
I'm getting there. What is the quarter? Sorry, I was looking for a word and I figured it out and it was quartermaster. So don't mind me.
That's fair. And you had said, Michael, you had cult member.
Mm-hmm.
And what was your access connection?
My access connection is unhinged weapon crafters.
Right, correct. Okay. And then there should be one more contact, right?
Yes. The third one I went with is discreet sawbones.
Okay, yeah. So somebody who's used to patching people up on the sly. Like,
Or, just put this body in with the next one that you have to bury.
Gotcha. Okay. Like it.
I feel like mine are a little redundant, so I'm a little stuck. So for my strain-related contact, I kind of copped out with just like, other unborn are kind of obvious.
Sure.
Like, an easy connection. Like, we don't connect well with most other people, but we probably at least have some fundamental, So that leaves me with my society contact, and the example connections are kind of all in the same vein, because it's like congregation members, minor creed leaders, and then like local leadership. But if someone's more on the wandering side, I feel like that's a harder thing to justify. So if anybody has any cool ideas, I would love to hear them.
It's possible. And again, this is where maybe some knowledge of the LARP might supersede kind of the tabletop thing. But correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of these faiths will have multiple branches or subsects within them, right? So it might be that you have spent enough time sort of moving around those circles that you have contacts within two different subsects, if that makes sense. So like if I'm in a place that's more, denomination A, I can get access to these things, but I'm just as good if it's denomination B, right?
Mm.
Because I know how to speak both there. I can code switch. I can do just fine at a Lutheran service and a Catholic service.
So that almost brings me to something Michael suggested in the chat, which was like, he asked if I was going nuclear family. And I was like, well, I'd kind of like to see if he could grow into it. But what if he has had a family and lost it and is now really like, we're doing the inception top. Is it going to fall or is it going to fall down? And so I was going to ask if I could play more towards like Mushroom Dad to start, and then still maybe have some remaining post Nuke Fam contacts.
One really good contact to give you like access to all of the, people in the settlement is like having the coach be your contact, because then you have access to all of the families in that settlement because he knows everyone, or they know everyone.
And
I was going to suggest the neighborhood watch.
Oh yeah, that's good too.
Yeah. I was going to say, unless there's some reason why you would have been, for lack of a better term, excommunicated from a group, you would maintain contacts that you had, even if you've suffered a personal loss, right?
Yeah.
So you still know those people. You can still go through them to acquire things.
I love a good crisis of faith. Let's do it.
I've got 3 subsect recommendations depending on which route you want to go. So there's a neighborhood watch, which is basically the ones that go, we're going to make sure that everyone's a good family. Sort of like Big Brother's watching you. But there's like a lot more depth to them. I would also maybe suggest the caretakers, because the caretakers are designed around the idea of we're going to build homes where there aren't, and we're going to take in like the remnants or things of that nature. Or if you want to cross over into some weird ass TV shit, you can go the Nielsen family.
Okay. I'm going to think on it, but I think Neighborhood Watch is probably most accurate. I did just get my Nielsen survey. I was really excited. It felt like my degree was actually being used when I got that in the mail. I also got $2 to fill it out.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, sorry.
Don't spend it all in one place.
I know. Bubblegum. Cool. We'll probably go Neighborhood Watch, though.
All right. So yeah, does anyone have any other, I guess, questions or concerns, either minutia of the character that hasn't been addressed yet, or overall story ideas? I think we will start kind of maybe the next morning after you've realized that your transportation and a goodly portion of your supplies had been made off with. We'll assume that you had found a safe bed for the night in Morganstown. But beyond that, kind of figuring out what's next will be where we'll pick things up at session 1. Does that sound fair to everyone?
Yeah.
Cool. Any other... and again, I'm perfectly aware that we did parse a lot of information this evening. I don't expect it all to stick. I would encourage you, the 2 things I would encourage you to do is make use of that character notes section on your sheet. So if you have things that are specifically offering a system underneath them, like X gives you enhancement Y, either copy them directly into that section or even just make a quick note, like this gives me just of what the system part is of each bit. Just so that we can keep things flowing as much as possible during gameplay. Having said that, I have no objection to stopping to scroll through the book if we need to do that. And I'm going to do my best to rely on rules as written in this document. Having said that, this is something that I like to try to make clear both to the players and to the audience who's watching at home and encountering this perhaps for the first time. There will, I'm certain, come times where I, being a human being, get a rule wrong, make a mistake, adjudicate something in the name of expediency as opposed to in the name of, or narrative, as opposed to in the name of digging up the specific rule. So, don't cite me later on Twitter as this is how DR works, because it might not be. In the event that I am aware that I've made an error at some point, I will do my best to correct it at the earliest possible convenience and just say, hey, next time we run this, make sure I know that this is the way it's supposed to run system-wise. I will try to keep track of that as best I can, because I do know that some people are tuning into this specifically to see how does the system work. So we are going to do our best to make sure that we're sticking to the rules. That may Also, especially in situations that are rules heavier, like combat, that may be like, why don't you find that in the book real quick while I move over to see what Katie's doing, kind of thing. So everybody's got a copy of the book, so let's all try to lean on one another for system literacy and understanding. But again, mission statement number 1 is have a good time. To that end, if there's anything that comes up during any game that is in the way of having a good time, please let me know, and I will make sure it gets out of the way. And again, just in case anyone watching at home missed the memo, these are pre-recorded sessions, so we're all doing at times that are mutually convenient for everyone so that we can make sure that we are broadcasting this at a time that is convenient for the audience, but might not be convenient for the players. So having said all that, I do want to reiterate to the players, if at any time, for whatever reason, we need to take a breather, go ahead and let me know. We'll pause the proceedings and we do the breather and come back, and there'll be a nice little cut that the people at home won't have to worry about. And we will have handled our breather. That goes for literally any reason whatsoever. It'd be anything from this scene is too emotional to this soda is too big and now I need to run to the bathroom for the 7th time today. Whatever the cause, doesn't matter to me. I just want everybody to be comfortable and happy. Have a great time. I would encourage those of you who are watching at home to, feel free to check out not only the Dystopia Rising Evolution, but there are a number of LARP resources that go heavily into the backstory of the world. Some of the items that are introduced in there will likely be brought up in conversation and touched upon, owing to the fact that everyone here has everyone that is playing this has far deeper experience with the world of Dystopia Rising than I do. So I may even be like, oh, that's interesting. Why don't you tell me what that is? As we're going through the story. And having said that too, this is the world as presented in Evolution. There may be an item or two, especially if you're watching at home, that just isn't present, or that maybe I am including in a slightly different way, or that I'm tweaking a little bit for this particular instance. So don't get too heartbroken if your favorite thing seems a little bit different or strange or unusual or off. It could be an interpretation issue, could be a speed issue, could be Katie can't hear us issue. But no worries.
For real, if everyone's checking in to see how the mechanics work, they're screwed. We're all just role players. I'm pretty sure you could have just flipped coins and we would have rolled with it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair, but I will do my best to be a good teacher and a good steward of the system. Having said all that, though, I think we're basically at the end of the time. So if there are a couple little bits here and there on your character sheet that didn't quite get nailed out, we can nail them out in the downtime between, or if you need to make a tweak here and there, that's totally fine. One of the things that is baked right into the system is that at the end of each session or beginning of the following session, you do all get to make a tweak or two if you need to. So if you're playing and you're like, hey, this skill isn't as useful as I thought it was going to be, I'd like to move a dot from this skill to this skill, those are allowed to be done in the sessions between as well. And once again, just want to reiterate how thrilled I am to have you all here, to have this opportunity to tell this story with you and have the audience tuning in and checking it out. And just again, I'd encourage you to check out Dystopia Rising Evolution, check out the LARP materials, check out the Trouble on the Steel Pier, which is the Dystopia Rising Evolution quick start. It's exceedingly affordable and gives you everything you need to get the game going. And I believe most of the folks here have played through it at least once. So without further ado, then we will go ahead and start our outros. And let's go ahead and start with Katie, since she's having some technical difficulties, and then she can not be over there sweating anymore. We'll all wait patiently. Or we can go on to the next one while Katie sorts out her text.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, wonderful.
Yeah, please.
Hi.
Tell us who you are, what you do, your pronouns, all that fun stuff. And then you can...
Okay. Hi, my name is Katie. It was lovely playing today. I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to be saying right now, but you can find me on Katie Griffin Writer. This is great. Goodbye. My headphones died. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, Michael, please give us your pertinence, who you are, what you do, who you're playing, your pronouns, their pronouns, and any final place you would like to send our viewers.
Wow, that's a lot of data. Okay, hi, I'm Michael Pucci. I go by him, he, they. I am playing an Ascensorite by the name of Lepotia, which will probably get shortened to Lep, just because I decided to take a fungus name. You can find me online, but I don't know why, because I've pretty much stopped doing things that people would be interested in. You can probably also find me at most bars. I just sort of exist at all of them at the same time. It's amazing. Other than that, this has been fantastic crunching of numbers, and I look forward to us uncorking the bottle that is like the actual play a game. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Beautiful. Next up, let's have Jesse. Please give us your pertinent details, who you are, what you do, who you're playing, pronouns, and anything else you'd like to share with the audience at home.
Hi, I'm Jesse. I'm playing potentially Linux Limeware is what I'm going to go with for my character's name. She, her, and also she, her. And probably shouldn't look for me on the internet. I just post pictures of my dogs and memes, so probably not very helpful. But I am very excited to play with friends and always enjoy everyone's company here. So super excited for next game.
We're excited to have you, and thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of this. Greatly appreciate it. Chris, please give us all of your pertinent details.
Hello again, it's me, your good friend, Chris Kitts. I use he, him pronouns, and my character, a wonderful, tired unborn named Emil Cantor, also uses he, him pronouns. If you do want to find me, DJ Stygian on Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. Don't follow me on Twitter. I make a lot of like weird poop jokes. That's all my life is.
I want to follow you on
but yeah,
Twitter.
If you want some spooky
Adding
tunes,
you on Twitter.
Don't do that. But yeah, if you want to engage with me outside of watching me like slow roasting my brain over numbers, that's where you can do it. And this was lovely, and I look forward to role playing with all of you.
Likewise, and thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. Then I guess that leaves us with Heather. Once again, avoided it till the very end. I think I'm seeing a trend now.
You are calling names.
Just throw all that blame. There you go.
I understand. I'm Heather Halstead. This was super fun. She, her pronouns for both me and my as of yet unnamed character. I'm really bad with names, so it's going to take me a hot minute. Angry, tainted mother figure for miscreants in whatever settlement we decide we're all from. You can find me on Instagram at Roughshod Films, because I'm also a filmmaker. And I am soon going to be hopefully streaming at the same Roughshod Films on Twitch, doing horror movie watch parties where I talk about the horror films while I watch them. So come watch horror or scary movies with me. I'm actually a giant baby when it comes to horror films, even though I make horror films. So it's a lot of fun.
Sounds like a blast. And what was the channel again?
Roughshod Films.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely go over and shoot them a follow. Check that out on Twitch. That sounds like a lot of fun. As someone who spent a decade in the independent film mines, my heart goes out to you.
I understand and I appreciate your condolences.
I was going to say, can I tell you about a podcast I'm a part of called Shit List, where we watch very bad movies? And talk about them?
Absolutely. Yes. Why would you not?
Let's all
tell
be
us?
friends.
Yeah.
No, because I don't like plugging all of my pluggables in one fell swoop.
I mean, spread them out. Yeah.
SHTLSTpod.com. We watch the most depraved films we can find, so you don't have to. We're about to watch Inside, and I'm going to have a bad time.
Good luck with that. Sounds like a riot to listen to. I guess that leaves me, huh? I'm Travis Legge. He, him. I am I have the privilege of being the story guide for this. And when I'm not running games here, I run them over at my Twitch channel, Plastic Age Plays. I sometimes write and develop books as well, including Scarred Lands. Go buy everything that's out for Scarred Lands, and even the stuff that's not on BackerKit. You can get Dead Man's Rust. What else do I want to tell you? Make sure that you, if you've not yet done so, please like, follow, share, subscribe, all that good stuff that you do on whichever platform you are consuming this content. Once again, I would like to remind you to please check out Dystopia Rising Evolution. It is super duper fun, as we will be displaying to you over the course of the next several sessions. I would like to once again extend my great deepest thanks to everyone that's here. I can tell this is going to be a very, very fun group to run through this story with, and I look forward to splattering gore and spooking everyone out as much as possible. Until then, pretty pleased with sugar on top. If you're watching this, if you're hearing my voice, go get shot and wear a mask and socially distance. If you can't do it for you, do it for someone you love. There's somebody that you care about that is vulnerable to this disease that's running around. So pretty pleased with sugar on top. Take care of them by taking care of you. Okay. We will see you again real soon. Be good to yourselves and each other. Bye.